We are concerned not merely with the technical problem of securing and maintaining peace, but also with the important task of education and enlightenment.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and I have a real special guest and a bunch of co-hosts to run things for me so I can sit back and think of interesting questions. I'm joined tonight by Mark Sims, who's got a new project going on. He's always very busy, and he has a project called Making Contact Convergence, and we have him on tonight to talk about what he's up to and how people may want to join the project. And I think we can take some questions on the Sinead. It's going to be on Nicole Sackage's YouTube live, so people on there if they want to put in a question. But I've got my two co-hosts here, and I have Desta Barnaby, who's our producer. She's going to be in the background. She may jump in with a question. But the two hosts for tonight are Nicole Sackage and Sinead Wellahan, and they are going to be talking to Mark and asking questions. And so I'll let Nicole start and take it away.
Nicole, would you like to begin?
You're muted, Nicole.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that long pause then. Hard of hearing, in case you didn't know. So Mark, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. You are just really on the cutting edge of things. And I guess my first question to you, would you like to begin?
I think I'm having some mic problems, but can everybody hear me?
Sorry about that long pause then. Okay. Hard of hearing, in case you didn't know.
Oh, you got a feedback.
Thank you so much for being here. It's always okay. So I'll keep going ahead. So, so Mark, I've got a couple of questions for you. One is that you are somebody who is studying universal consciousness development, and on your homepage, the first thing I saw when I opened your homepage is beyond world peace, right? Universal consciousness development beyond world peace. And I have a sense of what you mean by that, because I've seen you speak before and we know about your work, and we've been sort of, Nicole and Grant especially have been collaborating with you on your newest projects and the direction you're taking things into. But I thought that just because world peace is kind of that automatic phrase that everyone goes to when they think of making everything good for everybody and making the world a better place. But now we're moving away from that old idea. We're moving into something very new and very exciting, very different, very progressive, and certainly beyond the parameters of how we've been thinking all this time. So would you mind explaining what that means for this audience? Because I kind of feel like that's a foundation to the work that you're doing, right? And that if we plant that seed now, it'll help people understand more deeply as we're going along. So what does that mean to you beyond world peace?
Well, world peace is this overused meme that kind of, to me, doesn't have a lot of oomph in terms of actionable association with it. You know, what is world peace and how do we become part of a peaceful movement? And, you know, this topic we're discussing and that Grant and you guys have been bringing to the people through your various social media platforms really is talking about this question of making contact with off-world intelligence or higher dimensional intelligence, all these things that have been part of our recent discovery and awareness. And so Beyond World Peace is an attempt to take this discussion to a new level where we can have a discussion among ourselves, the human family, about how do we make peace here on Earth, and how could we reach out, make contact with extraterrestrial intelligence and these higher dimensional beings that we all are well aware of in our community, like you guys, and engage them in such a way that they can participate and guide us or help us or inform us, at least in ways that we might be more conscious, to elevate that consciousness to impact our world and theirs as well. I think that this is, in my 9 years of research since my first face-to-face contact with an extraterrestrial named Tejbar, I have been on this journey, on this path of discovery that has taken me into many directions. And I've learned about things that have blown my mind and things I knew nothing of before my experience. And where this has led me is into a new realization about the multidimensionality of reality and how consciousness is at the root of this. And that we have to take a step back instead of projecting our concepts of peace out there. We need to bring it back home, have a discussion with the human family, and come up with strategies and initiatives that will help bring peace to ourselves. Maybe that starts with self-peace, because I think there's a lot of the duality that exists in the world, and the problems arise not between others necessarily, as it is that we're dealing with our internal demons. And so that it gets deep very quickly. And so this was an attempt to raise that discussion from world peace to universal peace. It starts from within. And identifying the turmoil, the issues that we all have, because we're human and we're imperfect by definition, we're imperfect. And being able to come to terms with our own guilt or disappointment. And then from there, once we can forgive ourselves and fall in love with ourselves, then we can truly take that forward and expand that to another level, engaging with others and with our star family.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Nicole, can you just mute yourself? I'm sorry, we're hearing an echo of what we're saying in your background. Sorry about that, Nicole.
Maybe I can ask a question.
Grant, can I say something really quick and then I'll jump it over to you? A little bit of a bumpy start here, but.
Now you're muted. No, you're muted.
Unmute.
Let me ask a question. Well, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So really super quick, Grant has a question, but Mark, what you were saying, it just made me think of the title of, the harmonic convergence, because from a personal level and a philosophical level, I totally agree with you about doing the personal work, exploring our own inner personal universe before we can really meld with the external universe. And so the harmonic convergence makes me think of that, right? The convergence of all of these different aspects of our experience internally and externally, and kind of blending them into a greater understanding so that we can reach out further and explore human potential and that in space. So I just wanted to say that. I just love the title and how it all just seemed to knit together just now in what you just said. So Grant, please go ahead. You had a question. Sorry about that.
Okay, I just had a short question about, you're working with Danny Sheehan. Who do you think that we're dealing with? Because you mentioned ETs, but Tejbar was a human. So how do you interpret what's going on? Are we talking higher reality? Are we talking actual extraterrestrials? Or just to clarify the sort of the ground of being as to what we're dealing with here?
Well, that's a big question, and that's a very good question, Grant. I pause to answer the question. There is an answer, and I could give it to you in one word, but I hesitate, because I think it's very important for people to have some foundation of understanding before they can really appreciate the true answer to the question you pose. What is it we're dealing with here? Let me back into that answer this way. Our smartest physicists, astrophysicists, and others, astronomers, cosmologists, tell us that it appears that our universe began with this moment of the Big Bang, this moment of which some mysterious beginning happened with this infinitely dense small point in space in which it rapidly grew. And out of that came everything that we are and we see in this vast space. And it's continuing to accelerate. Instead of slowing down, it's accelerating. So, you know, what's behind that? What is behind this moment of the Big Bang? And nobody has the answer to this question. You know, there's this famous illustration of the cosmos being like a balloon being blown up. You know, this guy who's blowing up a balloon. And the question is, who's the guy blowing up the balloon? And as opposed to the balloon itself, our universe and the cosmos and all the stars and planets and life that exists. So this idea that we're all one resonates with us very deeply for those that I find of higher consciousness, people who are well informed, that have studied these, you know, concepts philosophically, theologically, culturally. This idea that we're all one really resonates. And it's true if you think in terms of this moment of the Big Bang, that we all came from that seed of pure energy, that we could go so far as to say pure consciousness. If, for lack of another word, we could call it energy, we could call it plasma, we could call it, you know, many things. I like to call it the sea of consciousness, that original unified sea of consciousness. And out of that, there became somehow a differentiation of this consciousness. It began to, let's call it, condense into droplets of consciousness. And those droplets of consciousness aggregated and continued this evolutionary process to eventually form the first elements of matter, the hydrogen atom. And the hydrogen atom, then they aggregate, these units of energy and consciousness aggregate into large spherical clouds in the physical universe. And at the core of those large spherical clouds, great pressure is placed on the middle, those atoms in the middle of that cloud, that eventually cause them to light up into stars, because a fusion process begins between the atoms, the hydrogen atoms at the center of these spherical clouds. And that gave birth to the first stars in our universe. And then they burn through their fuel, and then they go through a life cycle process. And some of those stars, depending on their mass, will go through a process we call a supernova. And that gives rise to the heavier elements. And that spewed matter from a supernova will again, these bits and pieces of hot matter that make up the heavier elements will glom together and aggregate, and they make these spherical units of magma, and they cool down and form the first planets in our universe. And somehow the process begins of volcanic gases being released, and an atmosphere is formed, and then life begins somehow out of this chemistry. And lo and behold, there's you and I out of that process, okay? All of that began at the moment of the Big Bang. So very, very, logically, it's rational to say we're all one. We're all from that moment of the Big Bang. And that resonates with me, and it makes me feel connected on an intellectual level with everyone else. But what I've discovered, I believe, in my last 9 years since my contact experience with Tejbar, is that it goes much, much deeper than that. That there seems to be this universal mind that is conscious at a much different level than our human mind and our human level of consciousness, and that we are connected to that. And the thing that, to answer your question, who is it that we're talking to? Who are the ETs? Well, philosophically, I'd like to suggest that we're all one, that we are talking to them. And it's all done through consciousness. And we are being prepped. Many of those who are open-minded, that have elevated our consciousness and are curious and intellectually inclined to study these, metaphysical sciences and the sciences, are discovering that there really is something to the fact that we're all connected to one mind, and that we're on the cusp of our human evolutionary process of making a big breakthrough. And that's what I believe this is going to end up being, that we're simply reuniting with other highly intelligent, technically advanced beings from other star systems that are already aware of this, and that we are connected with them through consciousness, but we have not yet learned. Most of our human family are not aware of the fact that we can connect to them through meditative practices and other techniques in which we can initiate contact, and they will respond. And this has been proven over and over by Greer, by you, by myself, to the point where I am so confident in my ability to initiate contact, and that I started filming them with night vision equipment. I started investing in night vision equipment, and I've started a little, video library of videos that I've been keeping them in my back pocket for the day when we're ready to show them to the world. Because, if the people aren't prepared for it, they're it's going to freak them out, or they're going to, there's lots of reasons why you want to be careful about how and when to present the information to the general public. The general public just isn't ready for the evidence, in my opinion. And that's what I'm interested in, is to begin a dialogue in a safe community. And that's why we've created the Making Contact Campus, a virtual world where people can come who are interested in this topic and begin a discussion about this question you pose. Who are they? And how do we make contact? And what would we say if we make contact? And then how do we, once those of us that are lucky enough to establish contact and feel safe in our dialogue, how do we begin sharing that with our family members in a way that doesn't, threaten them or make them feel like we're nuts? Because that's what happened to me in 2012 when I started telling my wife and my family members that I had established contact with an extraterrestrial. They thought I was mentally ill.
Well, Mark, that was a good stopping point, I think, and we can jump off from there. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, there is a difference now. You started off and we were calling this the harmonic convergence. And
Right.
Now it is transformed into the Making Contact Convergence.
That's right.
And I was wondering, before you tell us about the campus and the event that's coming up, I would like it if you could maybe, I know you just said you went to your family, and I'm assuming this is after you had established like back and forth conversation. And so I was wondering if you could take us back to those first moments when you were playing around with how to make contact with Teshbar. And I know I've gone back to your Facebook page several times, and I watched the video of you with the walkie-talkies and the certain megahertz and the transmission. I was wondering if you could tell us or walk us through that. And is that type of sending a message going to be part of the Making Contact event?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. So to answer the first part of your question, which was, what led up to my contact with Teshbar. This happened back in 2012. I was attending a Stephen Greer event that he organized. It was a 6-day CE5 ambassador training. And I went as a skeptic. But my skepticism had been lowered due to this disclosure project that he had organized back in 2001. And I wasn't aware of that until 2012, early in the year. And so because as a consequence of that disclosure project, I bought his 3 books that he had written up to that point. I read them, and that led me to register for for his retreat. And when I went, lo and behold, on the 5th night of a 6-day training, our group saw this ship materialize out of thin air above our heads. And for me, that was a watershed moment. I was there to answer a burning question, and that was, are they really here? Are the ETs really here? And when I saw that, I knew for sure that that was otherworldly. That was not a man-made object. It wasn't a secret vehicle, you know, that our government had developed. This was awe-inspiring. It was so beautiful. And so I went to my hotel room later that night, and I couldn't fall asleep because I was ruminating about the implications. Now that I was certain they were real and that they were in fact here on Earth and had seemingly been keeping themselves hidden. It wasn't our government that was, you know, keeping them hidden. They themselves seemed to be aloof and reclusive for some reason. And I wanted to know the answers to these follow-up questions. Why are they so aloof? Who are they and where are they from? What's their agenda? Are they really friendly? Because that's, of course, what Greer was suggesting. Mm-hmm. So I decided to sit up in my bed and attempt to make contact. And lo and behold, it worked. After about 15 minutes of meditating, I opened my eyes, and standing at the end of my bed is an extraterrestrial well, I should say what I thought was an extraterrestrial. It was clearly a non-physical being that was made of light. Most people, if they would have seen this in their room, would have thought it was a ghost or a holographic projection. But because of the context, I knew this wasn't a ghost. I assumed it was either an energy being, because Greer had described these beings that are higher dimensional and that are made of energy or light, or this was a holographic projection of a physical being, possibly on a ship outside the hotel room. I didn't know, but I did know that whatever was standing in front of me was not a human being and was not a ghost, so I was assuming it was an extraterrestrial. So that's what led up to my contact, and that, as you know, Nicole, began a 13-day odyssey in which this being approached me and ended up merging with my body, and he called it a communion. And in this state of communion that lasted over a 13-day period, I was able to ask him any question I wished. And the answers he was giving me were literally blowing my mind. And it's very important for people to realize that I had been an atheist my entire adult life. And I was a hardcore atheist. I belonged to an organization called the Freedom from Religion organization that was founded by an ex-pastor named Dan Barker and his wife. And I was a big donor to their organization. I was very, a champion of their cause. And so, I was very outspoken about my atheism. And here the first thing I learned from this being that's now inserted itself inside of my body is that, he was once human, and that he claimed he was a human roughly 3,000 years ago, and he lived in Tierra del Fuego, and that I would find this place in the very southern tip of South America. I had never heard of this place, and so when I confirmed that such a place existed, it confirmed that I was literally having a otherworldly experience, and that began my 13 days. And over that period of time, I went through a series of initiations. That's the only word that you could call it, where I was taken out of my body, where I was regressed and experienced a previous lifetime, at least actually 2 previous lifetimes. And in both of those cases, I experienced the last few moments of that lifetime right before I was killed. And the first instance, this was a life back in the 1st century during the Roman Empire. And I had been sentenced to death, and I experienced my own death by being killed by a lion in an arena. And then the second experience was when I was regressed into the body of a wolf. And this was a very interesting story that I rarely tell. But I had asked him, I said, well, if you're telling me that you were once human, and when you died, you ascended to this place you called the astral realm, which sounded a lot like heaven. I said, is that where I'm going to go? And he said, no, not necessarily. What typically happens is you're reincarnated, and through many lifetimes you develop spiritually. And it's only when you meet certain conditions that you ascend. And when I asked him what those conditions were, I eventually learned that what he called mastering unconditional love is the requirement for ascension. If you don't master unconditional love, then you are reincarnated to continue learning. So I said, well, who was I before I was Mark Sims? And he said, you were a wolf. So I was really surprised by this answer, because the wolf was had deep, meaning to me personally for lots of reasons that I won't get into. But I eventually asked about this life as a wolf, and why had I been a wolf and not a human being before, so he told me the story, he explained it to me. And what had happened evidently is that I was a Native American, I was a Lakota warrior, and I had killed or murdered an alpha male wolf to wear its skin. And I had done this out of ritual, out of the proper methods. And I had not consulted the elders and gotten the proper, done the proper things. So I had I had a karmic debt to repay. So when I died at the end of that life, I was reincarnated as a wolf. And then I was eventually, I experienced that wolf's death, and I was killed by a hunter. So I was shot right in the throat. And I felt that when I was walking through the woods, I was shot in the throat and experienced that death.
Wow. I was hoping you would discuss your wolf story, just a snippet. I have to save these so my son can watch them when he's older. I know I've spoken with you, and this has nothing to do with our conversation right now, but my son talks about his past life, and he recently, it was about 2 months ago, actually, he recently told me that he now knew how he died when he was a wolf, when he was in this wolf pack. And so he shared that with me, and I was so taken aback by it that I'll share it with you off air sometime.
I would love to hear that story.
Yeah. And I mean, he was disturbed by it a little bit. I mean, I could tell he took a while to process this dream, so, but yeah, keep going. I'm so awestruck. I'm just listening.
Yeah. So within a few days of this experience I was undergoing, I was completely converted. I was no longer an atheist. It's quite compelling to have these experiences. And so my life and my worldview completely changed profoundly. And I was forced to recalibrate my philosophical views on the afterlife, on the meaning of life, on, how, what's going on this planet? What is this place? And what I learned over this 13-day period, among many other things, is that we can think of Earth as a schoolhouse for souls to evolve. We're like children. And there's a process under that is the modus operandi, opus operandi, or modus operandi of of spiritual development. And the two things that work here are reincarnation and karmic, evolution, or I should just say karma. So, this concept that we reap what we sow is at the root of the karmic lessons that we're learning. So if you want to, be treated well by others, then you should treat others well and have compassion for them, have mercy for them, and that's why I believe peace begins with internal peace, being able to go inside and explore your soul. What is it that you're ashamed of, or that you feel heavy guilt over, and learn to deal with that head on and forgive yourself. This is, now getting into some of the central tenets of Christianity and of Jesus's teachings, the importance of forgiveness. It isn't just for forgiving other people, but most importantly, for forgiving ourselves. We are human beings. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And by definition, we are imperfect. We make mistakes, and that's part of learning. That's, and we are very hard on ourselves. I know I am. When I make a mistake, I really take it to heart, and I carry that guilt. And it's especially over this last 9 years, I've gone deep into my soul and pulled out those skeletons out of my own closet and faced each one of them and forgiven myself. And those skeletons, one by one, dissolve. And what I'm left with is a clean closet, a pure closet that I can look in the mirror and love myself, and really love myself. Even though I made mistakes, that's just part of this process of spiritual learning and development. And I am a good person, even though I've done some silly things in my life, and I've done some, but I'm better for it because I've learned from those mistakes, and I'm not going to do them again. And now I, feel good about myself. And once you feel good about yourself and you're forgiving yourself for all these silly mistakes as a youngster, and in college, and even as a young adult, I did some really stupid things that I was very ashamed of, and I just hid them. They were in my subconscious, and they affect us in ways that we're not even aware. But when you force yourself to face those things and you deal with it and forgive yourself truly, then you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. And you can now project that onto the world. You can say, hey, another person, like, well, some really bad people in our world, right, that have done terrible things, you can begin to empathize more with them, because just like you, they are imperfect, and they have their own cross to bear and their own mistakes that they're probably dealing with, the guilt and the disappointment and the insecurities that they carry on their back, and that manifests in really, terrible ways in our human family. I think, people like, to bring an example, I think Donald Trump is, an example of this. This is a poor man who was born into a very wealthy family, and he didn't receive really good quality love from his parents. And his idea of success and of love was directly related to wealth. And that's, you and I think many people understand the problem in associating love from a parent that is directly related to wealth and business success, that we should love our children regardless of their success.
I've often said, if we could bottle that moment of motherly love when you first meet your child for the first time, or just parental love, if you could bottle that moment and distribute it across the world, we would never have another war ever again. I mean, and other people describe what you're talking about as that seeing Shiva and Shakti and everyone you encounter. And there's other variations. And it is truly that connectedness. And if you can, like you were saying, if you can face your inner demons you start to recognize yourself and your higher self, everyone's higher self, when you look at them, and it's
Right.
wonderful. So if you don't mind, can we skip ahead to you're actually trying to make contact, like you develop this modality and it works. It's like, it gets me so excited. I want you to talk. So.
Well, I want to give credit where credit is due. And my very dear friend, Jimmy Blanchette, who is a CE5 experiencer, who is also an inventor and frankly, a genius, an engineering genius, he's from Canada, Grant, you'll appreciate, he's from Northern Montreal and, or Quebec rather. And as a child living on a farm in rural Quebec, he became an amateur radio enthusiast at a very young age. And he used his ham radio as a way to reach out and meet people. And he developed his many friendships through his radio work. And he, started making his own radio equipment, including these antennas. And you know how most antennas are designed to, broadcast horizontally to cover as much surface area of the earth as possible. He began at a young age developing these special antennas that are able to focus radio waves like a laser. And he would point them at the moon to bounce off the moon to connect and talk with somebody on the other side of the earth if the moon was in the right position. And so he was one of the trailblazers in what's called moon bounce communications. And he developed the radios, or the radio antennas rather, that has become the standard for radio amateur enthusiasts for doing moon bounce communications. And he's done thousands of individual communications. And he got the idea back in 2016 to use this as a method for making contact. And so he encoded a message into a radio signal that he broadcast off the moon, and it reflected all over the universe, and he got an answer. And over the years, since 2016, he's attempted to refine this contact modality so that people who are not, don't have all the equipment, but just simply have a handheld radio can initiate contact. And he has now created a new name for this mode of contact, and he's calling it the First Contact Protocol. And we are going to be featuring this during the Making Contact Convergence taking place on August 18th to the 22nd. So I want to be sure to make sure that everybody knows about this, because we are promoting it now on social media. The platform that we're doing this on is a virtual 3D environment that we call the Making Contact Campus. Not to be confused with the event. The Making Contact Campus is going to become the place where people can join in this conversation and become part of a growing community of CE5 experiencers and others interested in initiating contact. And they can come together and share experiences, share their stories, and we can have events. And we're doing our inaugural event August 18th to the 22nd. So if it's possible for you to give me like co-host status so I can share my screen, I'll give everyone a real quick demonstration of this virtual world.
Perfect.
Okay, let me make one comment as you're doing that. Canada invented the telephone, and now you're telling us that they invented the ET telephone. So that's good.
Well, it's really even better than that, Grant. You should be so proud of being Canadian, because Wilbert Brookhouse Smith, I am absolutely convinced. You know, I sent you the book, right? I spent years gathering all of his writings, and I was able to synthesize or re-synthesize a digital copy of his book, The New Science, that he co-wrote with AFA, this extraterrestrial he made contact with through Project Magnet. So he was one of the key people who helped establish the first standards for the frequencies that were reserved for various things, including amateur radio communications and television and broadcast radio and others. And so he was on the first board that established those standards. And one of those frequencies, 144.1, which is the one that Jimmy has been using for establishing first contact through the first contact protocol, is reserved for Morse code communication. And it was Wilbert Smith who helped establish that. And I'm going to share with you something truly mind-blowing about this. That frequency, 144.1 megahertz, if you divide that into the speed of light in meters per second, will give you the number exactly 43,200. Now, does that number ring a bell? No? Well, that is the scaling factor of the Great Pyramid that they discovered, that Graham Hancock discovered. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Have you been in contact with the Rendlesham Forest people? Because that was supposedly what the code that they got from the writings with the code. They had it all tied into the pyramid as well.
Well, this Great Pyramid is really a big deal because, of course, we now know that encoded into its dimensions and architecture were these numbers that have tremendous significance in our natural laws, like the speed of light, like this special frequency 144.1 megahertz, and more. So this is all going to be, I'm not going to tell you any more than that, because Jimmy and I are doing a very special lecture on the first day of the August 18th Making Contact Convergence. So let me, if it's okay, can I share my screen with everyone?
Yes, please. You should be able to now.
All right. So here is the actual closet that people go into when they register for the Making Contact Convergence event. So you buy your ticket at makingcontact.com, and you will get an email where you download the software. This only works on a PC or a Mac. We don't yet have it working on a tablet or on a smartphone, but we will. And when you log in, you will be given an avatar that you can customize. So I'm just going to show you that it's possible to customize, like your hair color, a hairstyle. And so you can do all this while you're in the closet, no pun intended. But you can change your skin tone, so this is the idea that you can have a custom avatar. And when you're done, you just hit this save and exit. And where we're going to pop out is, so the first place that we have open is the Cyberspace Lounge. I'm going to take everyone there. So we just select that and go. And that will be the only option for now. And this Cyberspace Lounge is where we have volunteers ready to welcome our new attendees to this event. And what you're looking at are the screens that display video and music about the event. So we have some signage on the wall, some beautiful artwork that we've done. And if you click on this art contest, we are having an art contest during this event. So artists can submit their artwork to be considered by our panel. And we will actually be giving away a first, second, and third place cash prize for the winners. And the winners will be selected by the attendees on the last day of our event. There's tech support here, a tech support number. And so if anybody who has a problem, a technical problem with their mic or anything else, you can text to this phone number and you will get a response. And then you can check out this place, and we have curated this beautiful artwork. Now these tables allow you to sit down and have private conversations with other people sitting at the table. And these blue areas designate a private space where only people sitting at the table with you or standing within the blue boundary are going to hear you. And you won't hear anybody outside of that area, and anybody out of that area is not going to hear you. So this will be a nice place for people to have conversations and just chat.
It's also got kind of a fun party vibe.
Yeah, it does.
Some spotlights, and it looks kind of like there's a dance floor. So yeah, it looks like it's a fun, welcoming space for people to investigate all kinds of different things. That is fantastic.
That's right. And then
now, Mark, is there still the option for people like our friend Sinead here? Is there an option to read text in conversation?
No, we don't yet have that, but we are going to be introducing technology as we build this out that will allow two people talking in different languages to communicate to one another through a translator.
Oh, wow.
And the translator that we have will have support for signing. So that will be really cool. And we were just talking about that with Sinead before that we went live, and how technology is really making it possible for people that are, have these kind of challenges to interact seamlessly with people that, can hear, that have all their, their physical faculties, so to speak.
Yeah, and Mark, I have a question for you that kind of relates to that. Not now because you're doing your walkthrough, but as soon as I've got the chance, I've got a question I'm dying to ask.
Sure.
This is beautiful.
Well, thank you. So what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to take you to the welcome area real quick. So this is a menu that every avatar has that will allow them to teleport to these different venues on campus. So I'm going to take you to the auditorium. Well, actually, I'm going to take you to the welcome portal. And the welcome portal is where, once we open the doors and we go live, we're still in the process of decorating the campus and preparing it for everyone. This is where people will land when they come out of the closet, so to speak. And so there's a little bit of a lag. It just takes a second or two. And here we go. And you can see there's a welcome desk there in front of me. And then behind me, we have a kiosk that shows you a map. This is the map of our island campus. And all these venues here are listed in the go-to menu, places you can teleport to. And this is where I'm at right now. You are here, so I'm right there. Number 3 is the auditorium. We have an expo hall here that's on its separate island. And that's where we have an exhibition with vendors that want to, sell things. And we've got one for all the speakers. We've got other vendors that are renting booths for, selling things. And so this is going to be like a real physical conference, but it's taking place virtually.
Wow.
And so you can see this go-to menu mirrors the menu on this map. And so I'm going to just show you another thing. We've got this kiosk, and we've got a schedule here. When you click on this, it will open up your local browser and take you to the schedule on our website, makingcontact.com. Speakers, this will take you to the speakers and their schedule. And we have the expo hall and vendors that are featured there. When you click on this, we're going to have a scavenger hunt. And this is something we're doing before the event. So as soon as you buy a ticket, you can customize your avatar, come into the Cyberspace Lounge, learn how to use your avatar to navigate and talk with others. And then we're going to open up the campus to a scavenger hunt. And we'll be making announcements. This will be days before we do the event. We have the art contest I mentioned before, and you can learn all about the details of that. And then we have a support button here that will take you to tech support. And here's the welcome desk, and we have 2 seats here where that will be manned by volunteers. And we're anticipating 2,000 people on the opening day of our event. So we may have a line of people who need technical support. So you'll be able to take a number, and that will put you in the queue for somebody to help you. And then there's this general information where you can click and take a number for support. And when you're called on, you will then you can see your tech support button is here pulsating to let you know you're in line. And then you can always, and when your turn is up, you will be teleported to a help support desk. And that's over here in this area. Here, I'm going to take you over here. So these tables are the tech support tables, and we have members here, volunteers that will be helping people with any technical support or general questions that they're having. So I'm going to take you to the auditorium real quick.
Mark, may I ask something?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, but I just want to check with you. I know because of your computer design and computer graphics background, that you are skilled in this area. Did you design this yourself?
No, I didn't. This is on another company's platform called Verbella. But okay, we are working on our own version of this, because this, while it's really amazing and great for what we're doing, we want to take it to the next level. And we need to be able to rapidly develop and integrate other technologies like AI. So we're going to have avatars that are controlled by AI engines that are permanent residents of the campus that can help people with technical problems or answer questions, take them on tours. And we don't need to pay anybody to do that. It's just whenever people are on campus, and because we're open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, people from any country can log in and explore, and then get technical support or a tour of the campus. And so this is what we're going to be doing.
So let's clear that up right here, Mark, just because it is a little confusing. So this virtual campus is going to be open all the time, 24 hours, 7 days a week, regardless of the actual event that is taking place on the campus. So that's people will still be able to go here after the event and still be able to mingle with people and network and interact with this world.
That's right.
Okay. So once you buy access to the event, you then have access to the campus whenever you want, or you can have access separate of the event.
So as soon as you buy the ticket, you have access to the campus up to the last day. And then we will be having another event, actually the event that's up here, the Bringers of the Light event that's put together by the Multidimensional group out of the UK. And you can see that I'll be one of the people speaking. Mary Rodwell, Ray Hernandez, Deborah Bowler, and Costa Makris are going to be part of that event. And that was going to be a physical in-person event that was going to be hosted in Wiltshire, UK, but they had to cancel it because of COVID. So we're going to be making this platform available to them for free so that they can continue doing their event virtually.
Oh, that's amazing, Mark. This is so incredibly well organized, I'm noticing. I mean, it's just really user-friendly. Everything is very visual. It's not hard to find. And the layout is kind of video game-ish, which is so appropriate considering that video games are just everywhere right now. Everyone's playing them. I mean, I know 55-year-old men who are very much into video games as much as 12-year-olds. So this is really amazing. It's very, very visually friendly. Like, I'm not confused walking through this, and I'm noticing the signage. I'm noticing the places that I can go up to and see what that option is providing to me, like in this particular situation right here. Yeah, please go ahead, Mark. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to comment on that.
So I'm in the information center, and this is where people can come and get short tutorials on various things about the campus. So here's one on customizing your avatar, how to navigate the campus, how to chat with others. Right here, you can see how to chat with others, how to find people on campus. So, you know, one of the big questions, if there are thousands of people all on campus simultaneously, how would you find a friend or somebody that you were looking for? So there's this little find users button here. And let me see if I can invoke it. Here it is. And right now there's only 3 people on campus, and this is where they're located. So I can search for them. Let's say I'm looking for Captain Ron.
Cat's on campus. She's
there
in
he
our
is.
room too.
So I know he's in the office suites, and then I can go there and talk to him. So I could teleport to him. So I could go. Let's see. Let's see. I think it's in Skyscraper 1, the office suites, and maybe he's in Skyscraper 2. Well, here, I'm not going to go look for him right now because he's probably busy and I haven't. But what I do want to take you is to some of the fun spots, like the beach. So let's go to the beach.
Ooh. A couple members from our audience are asking, what are the prizes for the art contest and the scavenger hunt?
So the first place prize for the art contest is $963. Second prize is $639, and third prize is $369. But what's even better is that every artist that is featured in our art gallery will be placed on our and promoted on our social media site, and in the exhibit hall we have our own booth, the Making Contact Convergence booth, and we're going to be doing their art on Redbubble, and so people can take their art, and this is a way to support the artists. So we're really promoting this, and then the winning artist, the first place artist, will have a permanent their winning art piece will become a permanent fixture on our campus in the art gallery or some other venue. We're going to pick a special place for that. So every year we'll be collecting this artwork.
That is wonderful. And Mark, I love the incorporation of the Fibonacci sequence in those numbers for the prizes. That is fantastic. Yeah. I love that. Tesla.
Yeah, all right. So
we're going to have to tell our friend Chase Williams too, because he's all about art and ufology art. He'll get a kick out of that.
So I'm going to climb up here on stage, and we have a DJ booth here. And with this DJ booth, we can play music and videos on the stage, and people can dance to it. So here, I'll just play this one.
So Mark, you kind of slid in a little bit of your ballroom dancing expertise, I'm noticing.
Right.
I see some samba. I see some capoeira.
I'm going to demonstrate my skills here.
There were some emoticon things in one of the rooms that you were in before that said you can emote by doing the samba or the foxtrot or the.
That's great.
Yeah, that's fun. That's great.
So can you hear the music?
Oh, that is fantastic.
Here, well, and watch, so I can, here, I'm going to leave. And
dance party time.
So I can do this.
That's so great. It headbang. Oh, wow.
This is a video from last year during the harmonic convergence, the arrival countdown. right.
That's so fun.
Thank you very much. That was terrific. This is an amazing campus. Holy moly. There's a beach. There's all kinds of fun stuff going on, and also very connective. I mean, I love how inclusive it is. It's very inclusive. All the different flags that are being flown on the side there, and the different options people have for how and where they can connect. Beautiful design. Nicole, what's standing out to you?
Oh, all of it. I mean, it is very interactive. And well, I think what stands out to me, aside from all the interactive things, is there are these pockets for private conversation. Because you know how all of us were like, hey, guess what I heard? Let's go talk. Let's do that. So there's still those kind of private spaces where you can kind of one-on-one with people as well. So I think that's very
secrecy?
cool.
Are you talking secrecy here?
Pre-transparency is what I'm talking about. Like, how's that for it? Pre-transparency.
Well, Nicole and I were just typing to each other a minute ago. We both have one question for you, Mark. So Nicole, do you want to go first, or do you mind if I do?
Why don't you go ahead? Mine is a question from the audience. So then if Grant has any more questions too, then there's just a few from the audience, and then that's how we can wrap it up. So
sounds great. Sounds great. So Grant, is there anything you're burning to ask at the moment?
No, you go first. I have one question, but I'll let you guys go first because it's probably about this. Mine is not really related to this, except that I would need, if I was to use this, I'd need Will running the computer, and I'd say, okay, go to the auditorium. Okay, go here, go there. I would actually.
That's all right. Just
go.
One of those.
There we go. Well, I will take it away in that case. Mark, that is just fantastic. I love the high vibes and the fact that there's so much fun. I'm emphasizing the fun thing because I think fun is actually much more important sometimes than we give it credit for, especially in adult life. You know, we think that we can't play anymore. Sometimes we have to be very serious and responsible, but playing is very important, and fun, of course, brings this wonderful, you know, open-hearted high vibe, which is important. The vibration is so important. And it seems like this is the place that, even though it's a digital world, people can go into that space and experience that feeling. So I think that's really wonderful. So thank you for that, and just for everything you're doing. You know, we are all major fans, and we just really, really appreciate what you're doing. It is so special and so important. So I have something of a, this might be a boring question. It depends what your answer is, but this is what I'm thinking of. You can tell me. So you have a significant computer background. You have quite a varied computer, well, IT background.
Yeah.
And what I'm noticing is, and this may be just simple math, you know, the fact that technology is now everywhere, and IT is a much, much bigger field than it ever has been, and lots more people are in IT. Maybe it's just simple math, but I feel like there's a correlation between the people who are in our field, who are very forward thinking, who are combining, I mean, you call yourself a spiritual scientist, which I love, and you were talking about, you know, the Big Bang and the explosion of our reality, you know, the expansion of our reality is probably a better term for it. And, you know, I love that you're incorporating science into what you're talking about, because it just makes it so relatable for people, and really combines, I think it gives people something of a feeling of comfort and familiarity. You know, they're building from knowledge that they actually already have. And so I love that you're incorporating that, and you're incorporating, you know, an understanding of nature and space as well in all of these topics. But my question is really about technology and computers, because it seems that the people who are tuned into all of these things that we're talking about, and who are curious about them, and are really wanting to push the boundaries of our nature and our thinking and our, you know, our hearts and minds, essentially, that a lot of these people are in the IT field, in the computer field. You know, Grant and I were doing interviews for a major conference that just happened, Contact in the Desert. We talked to Rizwan Virk, who is into futuristic computer stuff, and he talks about simulated realities and how this might be a simulated reality. You know, we know that's one theory. You know, there's just all kinds of interesting people who are involved in the paranormal field, and involved in the field of wanting to make contact and wanting to build interplanetary relationships, and they happen to also have a computer or IT background. Is that just simple math, or is there something to that? I wanted to ask you, because perhaps you see a connection between your background and what you're doing now.
Let me begin by saying, at the root of it is mathematics. regardless where you go in the universe, math works the same. And so math and numbers and things like the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, these things are universal concepts that are, you could think of as the fabric or make up the fabric of reality. They're one and part of it. They're integrated is another way to say it, where language and symbols are not necessarily as ubiquitous in terms of their in terms that they are interpreted by the individual. Numbers, not so much. The number 3 means pretty much the same thing no matter where in the universe you go. And the Fibonacci sequence is a concept, a formula, or a sequence of numbers that any intelligent being will recognize. And so that forms a construct, a foundation of understanding from which you can build from and bridge a dialogue. And this is true in language, but this is also true, I believe, in the fabric of reality and consciousness. And I'm fascinated with that concept. And so I've been studying string theory and number theory and numerology and other areas of mathematics, like vortex-based mathematics. I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole, a whole rabbit hole that you can go into. And I became obsessed over years with vortex-based mathematics, and I went really, really deep. And what it did for me was expose to me the relationship between numbers and patterns, and then patterns into geometry, and then geometry into reality. Because really, we look around us and the things that are made of matter are made of geometric pieces or units of energy that we call atoms. And how the evolution of the universe gave rise to atoms that are the building blocks of our physical world that then create living beings, and how consciousness relates to matter in our bodies ultimately is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I especially love the way numbers and geometric patterns, well, actually patterns in geometry, are reflected over and over and over and over again, in ocean life, in nature, in our bodies. The cochlea, for example, we were talking earlier about hearing loss. The shape of the cochlea is like a nautilus, and Tesla felt that the nautilus was a very special shape. The nautilus shows up in all forms of nature. So it is incredible how these things intersect, and there is this beauty to it all. There's a music to it all.
There is a music. That's what I've been hunting down, Sinead, is music that follows the Fibonacci sequence. So I'll share those with you some other time. But can I jump in with a few questions from the audience? And then
let me just make a comment on this, because we're related here, is the fact you're talking about shapes and all this kind of stuff. Deepak Chopra would say everything is an action inside consciousness. So this is sort of relating to, there's going to be a relationship to everything in the universe. But just to point out that Nicole and I have just published a book on triangles, and we talk about the key of the triangle, how everything in the universe is made out of triangles. There's a section that talks about that, and that comes from Sinead, help me. It's the savant guy.
Yes, James Paget. Jason Paget. Jason Paget,
yeah, where he said everything is made out of triangles. That's why you can't get pi, because you can never fill in a circle with triangles. Everything's made out of triangles. So just to show you that, just on that one little aspect, or why do they put triangles on experiencers' arms? Why do they appear as triangles? Triangles is a big thing, and we just put out a book on this bizarre aspect of triangles and UFOs.
This was the first geometric, this is the first craft I saw in 2012, just hours before my face-to-face contact. This is the thing that changed my life. Wow. And you can see it's all made out of triangles. It's a geodesic ellipsoid. Yeah. And this is an illustration of the object that, appeared in the sky above our group on the evening of November 15th, 2012. And just
book two. It'll be in book two.
so I just had to share that while you were bringing up triangles. And the other thing I'd like to share, if I could be so bold, is a recent video that you know, I think what I should do is just take you on the campus. We have a place here. I'm going to go to, oh, here, I've got to share my screen again.
Mark,
So
may I ask you a question just while you're doing this?
Sure.
Is there something, because I also have had this lifelong thing about triangles, but specifically threes, actually, threes happening in incredible pattern, you know, consistent pattern through my life and showing up in very significant ways in my life, threes. So triangles are three, right? Three sides, 3 points. Is that a thing? Or, I mean, is the three a special number, or does it just feel like that to me because it's shown up in my life a lot?
3 is one of the most important numbers of all. And in my opinion, it's the 3, the 6, and the 9. And if you know, this again could take us on to another 1-hour episode of Grant's show. But vortex-based mathematics, I think, better than anywhere else, provides a starting point for people who really want to understand the nature of numbers and their connection to consciousness and reality. So here I want to share. I want to share this with you. This is an artifact that I have in my collection from Ojuelos de Jalisco, Mexico. And Whitley was here about 3 weeks ago at my home doing a film shoot with John Yost, who's filming a movie that features Whitley. And so while we had Whitley, we filmed this little vignette on the significance of this statue in the triangle. So watch this. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I turned down the sound. Let me just fix that real quick. Whoops. Where's the sound bar on here?
I'm glad an IT guy has problems too.
Oh, well, that's not going to be it.
Did
Mark.
you click the share sound on when you open?
Yeah,
share
I
screen?
clicked the share, but I'm looking for the.
But usually there's a little thing on the bottom of the share that you have got to share the audio on the share.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay,
I'm not hearing it either, and that's because I turned down the video on stage. And
Oh yeah.
Let me just see real quick if. Well, let me go up on stage.
Experience.
Oh,
there you got it. Okay. This is pretty high tech, even though there's a few glitches. Pretty amazing stuff.
Is owned by Mark Sims, a dear friend who's also been activated by a remarkable experience.
You can't hear that very well, can you?
It's low, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for the volume control. It's normally right here. I don't know why it's not showing up on the screen. This is a Vimeo recording, and
We don't know its age.
People in the audience want to know how many people can be on the dance floor at once.
Well, we're going to find out. I don't know the answer to that question, but we're going to have 2,000 people. We're limiting the event to 2,000 people, and so that will be.
We'll get hard numbers on that for you.
Yeah.
To be continued.
You know what I'm going to do is stop the share here, and I'm going to go to my browser.
Yeah, you should have it on your computer.
And then our final audience question is, they're wanting you to speak on what's happening at the Lucerne, California site. And yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that. All right, this should.
Here we go. Lights, action, camera.
This little figure is owned by Mark Sims, a dear friend who's also been activated by a remarkable experience. We don't know its age, but it's a very valuable little figure. It cradles in its arms this man, a human being. Is this a soul carrying a man? And is the man moving through time while the soul gazes upward into a higher level of reality outside of time? If so, there's a lesson here, because in this little part, there is a triangle. And if you put this triangle in this and put it down on a soft surface, it will balance. But without the triangle, it won't balance. It will always fall. What is the triangle? Well, let's look at this in terms of an ancient law, the law of three, or the law of Trinity. It's a very old law. It's also a very new law in the sense that it is the structure of the atom. The electron is the passive force in an atom. The proton, the active force. The neutron, the balancing force. The neutron is the little triangle. In the human being, the body is the passive force. The emotions are the active force. And the mind is the force that balances the two, and you keep the flow of life coming in a healthy way. Now, what is this between the body and the soul? This little triangle is something truly huge. Let's go all the way from the atom back to the original idea of the Sphinx. The Sphinx contains three beasts: the bull, the lion, and the man. The bull is strength. It's the passive part of the Sphinx. The lion is courage. It's the active part of the Sphinx. The man is the intelligence of the Sphinx that balances the courage and the strength. When all three are balanced together, the Sphinx's wings spread and the Sphinx rises above life. That is to say, you cease to be identified with the things of life, the politics, the flow of this, how much money do I have, am I sick or well, any of that stuff. You become objective about life, and you see life in a state of balance. The little triangle is that state of balance between the body moving through time and the soul gazing upward toward ascension. It's a remarkable and beautiful piece. And whether it was made 6 months ago or 10,000 years ago doesn't really matter. It's a masterpiece.
Wow, that is so beautiful, Mark. Thank you for sharing that.
So cool.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I thought that was really well done. My friend John Yost from Rhino Productions did that as a gift to me and Whitley, and offered us to share it wherever we felt fit. And so you're getting a premiere. You're the first place I've shown that.
Ooh, we like premieres and surprises around here, Mark. Thanks.
It just it really, that was very confirming for me personally. Like I really appreciate you sharing those two things, but also it was so beautifully expressed and articulated, and it makes a lot of sense, you know, both intuitively and otherwise mathematically. It makes sense. Yeah. Wow, that was very cool. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, Mark, give us the goods on Lucerne. We've got maybe 15 minutes before I have to squeal out of here and go to Forbidden Knowledge News.
Oh, okay. So Lucerne is the place, and this is Lucerne, California, not Lucerne, Switzerland. This is a place where we have secured a building, what was once a hotel built in the 1920s. And it's a 70,000 square foot facility that we now own, and are going to be having a institute, a college, where we hope to, after COVID's over and we raise some more money and do some remodeling, where we can take some of the things we plan on doing in the virtual world of our institute and doing it live in a physical facility. And that will be the Citizens Diplomacy Initiative and the Academy. We plan on, when I say we, Danny and I and others have been working at this idea of establishing an academy where people can get formally trained on diplomatic skills and mathematics and the UFO ET phenomenon, to be part of a movement to establish diplomatic relations with extraterrestrials. We believe that only the citizenry of our planet who are prepared adequately and responsibly and take this very seriously will be the first ambassadors to our star family, as I like to call them. And we anticipate that if we do this in the proper way and in a safe environment, and and work in bilateral respective communications with extraterrestrials, we could possibly have physical contact with them. Mm-hmm. So that's, and one of the things I'll just show you, if you give me a moment here, I should be able to bring up a picture of the campus or of the building.
So this is going to be a campus where researchers can come and join, and others that want to network. Are there going to be experiencer resources at Lucerne as well? Where I know just from our chat tonight about talking about triangles and shapes, a few members in our chat, talked about when shapes come to them. So it just popped in my head. Could these experiencers come to this campus and share their like-minded experiences and seek help from people who want to study this? So
right. Well, we're building the Making Campus or Making Contact Campus for people to come together virtually, and we can have classes and private discussions where experiencers can share their stories, and we can educate them on different contact modalities, the radio first contact modality, the CE5 protocol, and other techniques. The Rama group has their own method. Right. We'd like to host them on the virtual platform where they could give a private class to people in the campus. But eventually we'll want to do this together in person. Right. And this is the place. And so this is a model of it that we're developing for the next version of our virtual platform, where this will be an exact replica done in 3D that we can plop down in the virtual world, and this will have classrooms and an auditorium and other rooms where people can gather, and we can virtually learn things together, and then that will prepare them for the real thing. When people want to come to Lucerne, California, we can all meet in person and really put these things that we've learned into practice and see what happens.
That's amazing. I've often joked, where's the ufology 101 course at? Like, now I know where it's going to be held.
Right.
Can I jump in with a question here?
Sure.
Please.
Maybe because we haven't really talked too much about, you've got an event coming up the week after next. Can you sort of describe some of the speakers that you're going to have? And in terms of that, because you're calling it a contact event, my question would be in terms of some of the speakers, Lou Elizondo, Mellon, Blumenthal, are these people into supporting contact? Because I posted on Facebook a thing that I believe came from the highest levels of intelligence. And this is what I was told. We can't track the phenomena, so we track people correlated with the phenomena. The lights in the sky produce no usable information. On the other hand, there are many different types of contactees with many different insights, and maybe there are even visitors, however defined. So my question would be, if you could talk about who's coming to this event that's coming up in a week and a half, or whatever it is, 2 weeks, and then talk about, are these people into this consciousness thing? Because you hear a lot of the debate in the UFO community about the threat, and we're interested in metals and technology and this sort of thing, whereas the contact event would seem to be one step above that.
The contact event is an attempt to have a very serious discussion about this new awareness that has been made or presented by the mass media through the New York Times article about the Navy recordings from the fighter jets, the 3 famous videos of Gimbal, Tic Tac, and Go Fast, and the acknowledgement now by people within the government and the Pentagon with its report that these are not ours. We don't know what they are. And so this opens the door for another discussion where we can really acknowledge that these appear to be off-world vehicles controlled by pilots from elsewhere. And so we're attempting to raise this discussion to a higher level, no longer doing the same old thing that we're doing at most UFO conferences, trying to convince people that UFOs exist and ETs exist. We now know they exist. The government has said as much, in effect. Now we're talking about, now what do we do now? It's time for a serious discussion about how to establish relations with them and reach out and try to make contact. And how would we do that? And before we do that, shouldn't we have a discussion about the consequences of this? What would we want to ask them? How is this going to affect our culture? How's this going to affect our philosophical and theological and political views? Are we going to be assimilated by them potentially? There's so many people who are, have a romantic view of contact, that, hey, just, take me to your planet. I'm ready to go and leave Earth. We need to back up a little bit and have a serious discussion about the potential implications and ramifications of making contact. Assuming, if we were to ask them for help, would they give it to us? What would we ask for? These are the discussions we need to have. How will it affect our culture and our perception of reality and our perception of ourselves in the universe? I think there needs to be a discussion among ourselves before we get serious about establishing relations with them. And that if I were them, if I were, some advanced, technologically and intellectually advanced civilization that's most likely, at least some of them, must be very highly spiritually advanced, and I know this to be a fact, this is what I know, that what would they be expecting from us before they would be willing to have a dialogue with us in a public setting with the rest of the human family? And I think that's a discussion we should have. And we have a responsibility to show them that we are going to take this seriously, be respectful to them, and respectful to to the other members of the human family that want to engage in a discussion with them, and have our act together and have some consensus among those people that are seriously undergoing this discussion, and maybe our first representatives to make contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. That discussion needs to begin in earnest, and that's what we're attempting to do. And we believe that the campus is the perfect place where that discussion can begin. This is our inaugural event for having that discussion, and it's going to lead to other events and other discussions and other programs that we will that we'll be developing. And we want to do this transparently and engage people so that it's not done or perceived to be done behind closed doors in secret. We're going to record everything. We're going to archive these videos, including the ones we're doing over this 5-day period. So anybody coming into it later can come up to speed very quickly and know, this was all done in a transparent, respectful way where anybody who's interested and curious and wants to engage in this conversation can do so and feel safe about it.
Oh, Mark, let me ask you something. I've only got one more question for you, and that I'm going to take it back to Nicole. We also need to ask you for the link for this event, by the way, so we definitely want to put that in our closing remarks. But I want to ask you about what you're talking about, focusing specifically on the contact, between maybe specific people on Earth and then other specific beings, right? That there would be a sort of agreement of who would meet and where and how that would happen. That's my assumption. It makes me think about how, they say that they've always been here. We believe that they've always been here. That makes sense to me that they have, and that we are the newer, younger race, that we need to be learning from them, but that we've had perhaps some opportunities from them before. Earlier in this discussion, you brought up Jesus Christ, and Jesus is a being who comes up quite a bit in conversations in this field, which I find very interesting. Personally, after my own awakening in 2019, Jesus suddenly started showing up in my life in various ways. So I find that interesting too. You brought him up, and then a bit later on, I was mentioning Tesla because of the Fibonacci sequence, and Tesla certainly understood the 369. He was a very, very special being. So there have been rumors, talk about people like special human beings, apparently human beings or not, such as Jesus and Tesla and others, that they were not human at all, that they might have been ETs, that perhaps those were opportunities that we were given to learn from them and to try to integrate that knowledge and wisdom into how we were living. And we basically messed it up, So is there, in your knowledge and understanding, any truth to that? Because it's personally, I find it a bit hard to believe that we would have never had any opportunities to interact with them before. Many people say that we have, but I wonder how it's been done. And I wonder if these special people that we remember thousands of years later, hundreds of years later, decades later, who really stood out to us and had such profound wisdom way ahead of their time, that they might have been here for more than what it seemed to be at the time. Do you know anything about that from what your knowledge and experience has been?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. I want to answer the first part, and that is, have we been visited in our historical, in history, in the past, by maybe higher intelligences that were here to help us evolve? And maybe Buddha, Jesus Christ, Krishna are examples of beings that were human, but possibly, very highly conscious humans. So maybe they were, in fact, put on earth for a purpose by a higher power to help us to make a major jump in our consciousness through the teachings of these remarkable beings. And I do believe that that's the case. And that what's different now, however, is that there appears to be an attempt to make contact on a global level. Never before has there been an opportunity to reach the entire human family through our technology, through our internet and television and radio and communications network, to reach so many people simultaneously with a single message. And not only to broadcast a message, but to engage in an interactive discussion. And that's critically important here. And that's why I feel this Making Contact Campus is a game changer. It's unprecedented. It's really revolutionary that we're no longer is information going to be projected one way, where there's somebody telling a story and then everybody else listening to it, like we have with television and radio. Now we have the ability to have interaction, a dialogue, And this engages the individual to participate in a exercise that is intellectually stimulating and physically stimulating and entertaining. And this is, you know, provides an opportunity to take it to a whole new level. This, I think, is the ushering in of a new era in which, you know, maybe instead of there being one individual like a Jesus Christ, that we collectively have people like Danny Sheehan and Grant Cameron and Richard Dolan and, you know, other very intelligent people that can share their knowledge collectively. And by putting the pieces of the story together that each of us have to tell, a bigger picture emerges about who and what we are and what this is really all about. So that's what I anticipate.
Wonderful. I think that was the perfect way to say it, because I often say each of us has a piece of this puzzle, and the more we come together, the bigger picture we get. So thank you so much, Mark, for coming on tonight and chatting with us about this awesome event and this wonderful platform that is arising out of it. I think it's just going to continue to grow and be amazing. So thank you so much. Grant, was there anything you'd like to add?
For the podcast, can you give the link for people who don't have a visual to this, and
yes,
when the event is and what the link is?
The link is makingcontact.com, and you'll see a register button or a buy tickets button throughout the site. And when you click on it, it will take you to the page. The price of the ticket for the 5-day event, which takes place August 18th to the 22nd, is the standard price is $249. But if you use a promo code, and I'll give you one that I've got in my back pocket, SNA Save 100. So SNA, that's Sam, Nancy, Adam, Save 100. That will save you $100. And so it's $149 for this amazing 5-day event. And as soon as you buy your ticket, you're open to the campus. You can explore and begin talking with people. So you're really getting on the campus way before our event, our formal event. And so it gives you a chance to get to customize your avatar and play around and talk to other attendees. And we've already opened it up for that.
Wonderful. And I dropped the link and that promo code into our YouTube chat room right now. So thank you very much for that. And thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. I'm Nicole Sackage, and I'm here with Grant Cameron, Mark Sims, Sinead Wellahan, and as always, Desta Barnaby in the background. So from all of us here, I'd like to say good night and thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.